This is part 2 of the photosynthesis and cellular respiration notes. So this is topic 2, cellular respiration. You do have fill in the blank notes on this, so please make sure that you fill them out. The cartoon says, when are you planning on finding a job? And don't you give me that excuse that you don't have any energy. You're a mitochondria for nucleus sake. So again, what does the mighty mitochondria give you? ATP, energy. So this mitochondria is telling the other one, you have to have energy because you are a mitochondria, right? Okay, so this is what's interesting. Remember we went over photosynthesis? Well, photosynthesis has these things that it starts with. Carbon dioxide and water and light energy, right? So what are these things called? 1, 2, 3. What are these things called again? Would you start with? Reactants, right? And what are these things back here that it produces? Sugar and oxygen. Products, remember? And remember, sugar is glucose. And the equation for that, remember it by remembering CHO, right? Like chocolate. CHO. Now remember the scary but interesting numbers. In this case, it's 6, 12, 6. And remember that glucose is not necessarily a chocolate. It can be any type of sugar, right? But chocolate is a sugar. So that's what I use to remind you that glucose is CHO, C6H12O6. Now, this is the pretty cool part. Do you see that these products are, over here? What? So cellular respiration is what the producer made for you. And you're using oxygen and you eat the sugar, right? The food that it made. And you are producing carbon dioxide, right? And water. And do you make light energy? Do you make the light? No. So you cannot make that type of energy, but you still do produce an energy. What kind of energy do you make? Energy, ATP, right? Okay, so remember, they're the opposite of each other. If you can't remember the other one, then remember the one of them, okay? What do plants need? What do you need? So, the cellular respiration is kind of like photosynthesis, but backwards. Spooky, right? So again, on the bottom it says C6H12O6. What's that? What's that? The glucose, right? And we got it from the producer. Yes, the sugar, the carbohydrate, or the saccharide. It's all the same thing, guys. And what else did we get from them? Oxygen, 6CO2. And what did we produce? What did we make? 6CO2, 6H2O, and energy. Only we don't make the light, it's ATP energy, right? And this is what plants need. Forget, wait, what do we make again? Do we make water? I don't know. Well, what does a plant need? It needs water? Yes. So you make it? Yes. All right. And do you remember that photosynthesis happens in a little organ? It does not happen in the mitochondria. It happens in this little organ that's green, and it's called a chloroplast. You have it in your notes. And what are these coin-looking things? Yeah, these are thylakoids. It didn't fit up there. Thylakoids. That's okay. And one of these stacks of thylakoids is a grana. And all of them are granum, right? Granum, grana. Very good. So remember, the sun hits this thylakoid, and then you have H2O there. Remember you saw this yesterday? I was trying to help you to see this yesterday. And then the light, zap, it hits the H2O and the oxygen is released. Yes? And so it was supposed to sink because you took out the oxygen. Remember, that was hard. But then once you put it under the light, it's going to produce its own oxygen and start to float again. And some of you got to see this, some of you didn't. Please make sure you turn that in by tomorrow. Whether you got this result or not, it's okay. I'm not going to grade you on that. I'm going to grade you on, did you learn something? So why did it not work? What happened? Okay, so make sure you talk about that. And then remember, over here in the stroma, CO2 is put in, and then you take out that CHO. And what is that again? Glucose, right? All right, so that's photosynthesis. Well, the mighty mitochondria, this other frijolito over here, is what makes ATP energy. Cells that use a lot of the energy are going to have more mitochondria, like your muscle cells, your brain cells, even your heart is a muscle. So your heart cells, you're going to look at this cell in your body. Scientists can be looking at a cell under a microscope, and they're going to be looking at a nucleus. They're going to be able to see the ribosomes in the rough ER, or they can see them all around the cell. And then they're going to see a lot of frijolitos. What? You have 1, 2, 3 of them? You don't just have one in there. So this must be a muscle cell. It can be a heart. It can be a leg, right? An arm cell. It's a muscle cell because it has a lot of mighty mitochondria. Your skin cell, your blood cell, your hair cell, they will not have a lot of mighty mitochondria because they don't need a lot of ATP energy in your skin. But you will use it in your heart, right? Okay. So, cellular respiration. Again, what are these things called? The oxygen, the glucose. They're what you start with, so they're called the reactants, right? And what do we get that from? The oxygen, the glucose. Who do we get it from? The producers, right? And then in this mighty mitochondria, in your cells, you're going to produce, so here are the products, carbon dioxide that the producers will use then, water that they will also use, and do you make the light? No, but you make ATP energy. Well, let's find out how this happens. I'm going to show you this by making it big. Let me pause this. So here we have cellular respiration on top, and we have glucose, right? But where do we get that glucose from? Do you remember? We got it from photosynthesis, and it's down here. Yes? And then we also got oxygen from them, right? That's what they produce. And then we produce carbon dioxide, which they use, water, which they use, and ATP energy. They use light energy, right? So you see how they're the opposite? What we make, they use, but what they make, we use. Remember that. Photosynthesis and cellular respiration are opposites. So those are the reactants. They're opposite of each other, and the products are opposite of each other. So, practice question. Why are photosynthesis and cellular respiration often considered opposites? Photosynthesis produces twice as many ATP molecules as cellular respiration does. Water is released during photosynthesis and consumed during cellular respiration. Photosynthesis occurs during the day and cellular respiration occurs at night. Oxygen is produced during photosynthesis and used during cellular respiration. Think about it. Choose an answer before I show you the answer, cheaters. So that's your answer. Oxygen is produced during photosynthesis and used during cellular respiration. So let's take a look at this. The first thing you do is highlight the question, right? You know this. So usually if you would have this on paper or on computer, you can highlight it just the way I'm doing right now. And then what's the second thing you do? Yeah. So the first thing I did was highlight the question. The second thing I do is, whoops, underline or circle what's important. So I'm talking about photosynthesis, cellular respiration, opposites. Why are they opposites of each other? And now I have to write what I know, right? So here I would actually write the equation. because I know that the reactants are the opposite of each other, right? The reactants of one are what the other one produces. Yes, and the opposite. So let's look at those answers. Photosynthesis produces twice as many ATP energy. Does photosynthesis make ATP energy? No, it doesn't do this. So that's wrong, right? It uses light energy, but it doesn't make ATP energy. It makes glucose and oxygen. That's it. Water is released during photosynthesis and consumed during cellular respiration. What does photosynthesis make again? Glucose and oxygen. Does it make water? No, it uses water. You see why it's important to write the equation? Like I said, I would have written it down right there. Photosynthesis occurs during the day and cellular respiration occurs at night. Well, photosynthesis needs the day, right? It needs the light. But cellular respiration, do you only respirar at night? No, guys, right? You don't only make ATP energy at night. You use it in the day too. So that's not right. So cellular respiration happens all the time in the day and the night. So that's not your answer. And oxygen is produced during photosynthesis. Do producers make oxygen? Yes. And during cellular respiration, it's used. Do you use oxygen? Yes. So that was your answer. Now, cellular respiration that does not require oxygen is called, is it anaerobic or aerobic? Well, we're going to go ahead and circle air and air. It's spelled differently, but this is with air or oxygen, and this one is an. And an means no. So which one does not require oxygen? Anaerobic. That means no air, right? All right. And why is this important? Okay, last slide. This is important because cellular respiration takes place in 2 steps. The first step is out here in the cell. So this is a cell. This is a big cell. Bigger than that. And it has mitochondria in there, right? And the nucleus, and the Golgi, and the ER, and the lysosome. It has a lot of little organs, organelitos chiquitos adentro, right? So, in there, there's also something called cytoplasm. Make sure you write that down in your picture, in your diagram. Cytoplasm. And cyto means cell. And plasm means jelly-like. So in the classroom you are in, there is air all around you. But in the little cell, there is no air. There is jelly-like substance. So the little organs, the nucleus, the mitochondria, they're not moving around in air. They're moving around in jelly. Okay? So remember what we got from the plant or the producer? We got glucose. So you see this glucose over here in the bottom? Let me change the color so you can see it. This glucose is going to be cut. You see glyco? Doesn't that sound like gluco? Glyco? And lyse means to slice. So you're going to divide this glucose that you received in a process called glycolysis. Write it down. And how many ATP energy are you going to make? 2. No más. Yes, that's it. Just 2. That's not a lot. So, does this need air? Is this anaerobic or aerobic? Well, if it makes only 2, then you got it. It's anaerobic. And nowhere here do you have oxygen coming in yet. So anair means no air, right? And another word for this besides glycolysis is called, let me use another color, and go back to the blue. Fermentation. So this process is called the fermentation process. And very important, bacteria do this. They don't use oxygen, they use anaerobic. And they go through glycolysis. They make 2 ATP or 4 ATP and that's it. And they go through fermentation. Okay? Now, this is called fermentation. Step 1, glycolysis. Yes? Now, why is this important? Because you're going to do a project or an experiment tomorrow, and you're going to be using oxygen, you're going to be breathing, but then you're going to stop. You're not going to stop breathing. You're not going to get enough oxygen. You're going to do a little exercise. Calm down. It's not a hard exercise. And you're going to see that, oh man, I'm going to need more oxygen. Maybe some of you are going to start breathing like so you can get the oxygen. I don't know. But what happens when you go through fermentation or glycolysis is you form something called lactic acid. What do you form? Lactic acid. And lactic acid is the burn. Remember when they say feel the burn when you're working out? Well, that burn is lactic acid. It's what your muscles go through. Wait, what? Muscles? Yeah. Remember the mighty mitochondria is in muscle cells more? Well, this is why you feel lactic acid, because your mighty mitochondria needs the air, aerobic, right? And that's in step 2. Step 2 is aerobic respiration. It needs the air. Okay? So, when you stop using that air, you don't use enough, you start to feel the burn. And a few years ago, when I was in school, in the Olympics, some competitors were putting extra blood in their body. What? You can do that? Yeah, you can put extra blood in your body. Now, as long as it's your blood, it'll be okay, like your type of blood. Well, this was illegal. Why? It's not drugs. It's a natural, right, process. But what happened was blood takes in oxygen and gives it to your cells. So the people were not feeling the burn. They were not getting lactic acid because they were using air and they were not in anaerobic fermentation process or glycolysis. So they didn't start to feel the burn, so they never got tired. So they were winning. That was not fair for the other competitors that were getting tired, were getting lactic acid, were going through anaerobic respiration, because then they lost, right? So think about that, the things we do. So please label mitochondria, because the mitochondria is the second part 2. And here you do use oxygen, aerobic. And here you have 2 steps also. In the mitochondria, you have step A, the Krebs cycle. How many ATP do you make with that? 2. And then you have B, the electron transport chain. And the electrons give you some energy. How much ATP does that give you? 32. So if you add all these ATPs together, the whole cellular respiration, anaerobic plus aerobic that you make, it's 2 plus 2 plus 32, and that equals a total of 36 ATP. Now, is this more or less than just 2 or 4 that fermentation makes in glycolysis? It's more. So then if I give you this question, what makes more ATP energy, anaerobic respiration or aerobic respiration? You're going to tell me it is aerobic respiration because it uses oxygen. Very good, guys. So if there are any blanks I did not fill in, I will go ahead and answer them now. Please make sure you turn the fill in the blank notes tomorrow, Friday, or last day, Monday. I am going to give you an assignment, so make sure you complete it with these notes, and then you turn that assignment in tomorrow or Monday.